They took stem cells from the bone marrow of that animal and simply just laid them out, placed them on that connective tissue. And a week later, they have a beating heart in a test tube. This is amazing. This is telling you the stem cells sitting in your bone marrow right now can completely rebuild your heart.
Christian, there's a lot of snake oil in the space, and my job is really trying to give our listeners only the stuff that works. When you look at STEMREGEN, what is your biggest fear as more products come to market and realize the opportunity in the space? Christian Drapeau is a pioneering researcher in stem cell science who has a unique ability to bridge biology and spirituality. Through his company STEMREGEN, he has developed a natural, non-invasive way to activate the body's healing system by using plant-based compounds that release adult stem cells from the bone marrow into circulation. Christian, draw it out for me. I want the perfect week, Monday to Friday. What do I need to do?
Meditation puts more stem cells in circulation. The ideal week in terms of health process.
What 5 food items would you say they should pick up at the veg store tomorrow?
I tell people that add colors in your food. Anything that is colorful will bring polyphenols that all have some form of anti-inflammatory properties.
I've recently had a doctor that is pro-carnivore and spoke very passionately about how vegetables are not needed in the human diet. I want you to dispel his claim one way or another from what you've seen with all your research.
I will just say,
the future looks amazing, but also a little scary. If you, just like me, want to have an honest outlook of what the next chapter could look like and how best to prepare for that, I ask for one simple favor: subscribe, so I can invite the brightest minds on this podcast and get those answers for both you and I. Enjoy the episode.
Christian, pleasure to have you here.
my pleasure, thank you.
If our listeners could get one thing from our conversation today, what do you hope it will be?
To understand and let this whole concept sink in that just like your body is an immune system, your body is a repair system. It's just like you have a cardiovascular system, you have a repair system. So if you have a cold, you'll boost your immune system. Well, if something is broken in you, boost your repair system.
You're one of the first people to coin that stem cells are part of that repair process.
I don't believe that we were the first one to have the idea of it, but yeah, I'm the first one who published on it.
Okay. And what was the research about? How did you figure that out? And how has it kind of evolved over time?
Well, it was very much of an investigative process from a scientific standpoint. So I was working, we'll go back to 1995. I'm was hired to study blue-green algae from Klamath Lake. So it's not spirulinite, specific species called Aphanisum anonphilus aqua, in short AFA. You know this blue-green algae?
No idea.
So it's a blue-green algae that grows naturally in Klamath Lake in southern Oregon. It had been on the marketplace for a decade or about a decade. And the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act had just been passed in 1994. So now companies needed science to back up their claims. So I was hired. My background is brain research. I was at the Montreal Neurological Institute. I was hired as a young scientist by this company to just document what are the mechanisms of action, what can we document scientifically to support any of the claims that they were making to be in compliance with this new regulation. So that's how it started. So I very quickly identified the mechanism of action for the anti-inflammatory process, for the benefit on the immune system, benefit on the mind. I would say most consumers would report an increase in mental clarity, mental energy, mood elevation, even antidepressant. It's a natural source of phenylethylamine. So that's how we discovered. But as I'm doing all this work, I came across people reversing multiple sclerosis, insulin-dependent diabetes, severe COPD, emphysema, heart disease, Parkinson, Alzheimer's. So you start to look at the spectrum of the benefits in different people. And at first it's 10 cases, 20. When it becomes to be like 100 of these cases, then it starts to be compelling. This product was doing something that we could not explain on the basis of the science that we had on this blue-green algae. So I did a number of studies to try to understand it. We got good data, nothing that really was the famous like moment, like we got it. And early 2001, I came across literature on stem cells. So we're in the very early days of stem cell research. And it led me to kind of think that it looked like stem cells were the repair system of the body on the basis of what I could put my hands on. And the concept to me, like it was early in the process, still tons of questions, but to me, it was unavoidable. Like it's what the data was really pointing in that direction. So we took, I would say, the risk. The reason why I'm probably the first one to write about it is because I had no reputation, I had no academic position to risk or whatever. So I just published it. Stem cells look like they are the repair system of the body. In the back of my mind, just like you have plants stimulating the immune system, what if this blue-green algae was stimulating the repair system? And that's why, as you release or stimulate your repair system, well, it helps the pancreas of the diabetic, the lung of the emphysema, the heart of the heart patient, and so on. So we acquired a flow cytometer to count stem cells, and then we start to count stem cells before and after taking this blue-green algae, and we very quickly discovered that that's how this blue-green algae was working. It was boosting or stimulating the release of stem cells from the bone marrow. So that was the starting point of all the last 25 years of research in that field.
Our listeners have heard about stem cells being activated by IV drips and taking it from embryos or fallopian tubes or whatever, right? This is a completely different way of doing it.
Yeah.
Are there any similarities with the process or the increase in stem cells? Because for me, I'm like, I look at the stem cell space and I'm like, oof, that's a lot. Yeah, there's going to be risk there. I've got to make sure that I go to a practitioner that's definitely sourced it from a good manufacturing practice. Are there any comparisons with what you're doing and what they're doing?
It's the same thing.
Okay.
Let me put it into its historical context, and I think it will make it simple. So we're in the early 2000s. Stem cells from the bone marrow, since the 1950s, early 1960s, are known to be the precursors to blood cells. Stem cells can turn into white blood cells, red blood cells, and platelets. But the belief is that this is their limitation. They cannot do more than that. So early 2000, we are able to grow human embryonic stem cells. And that is what really made this whole field explode. But we know that bone marrow stem cells can only become blood cells. So people go into other sources. We look at fetal stem cells. It's ethical or unethical. Then we go to umbilical cord stem cells. And then we find that there's some stem cells in fat tissues. So all of this field of finding a source of stem cells is being developed by various companies because it's not yet approved. So it's all corporations that develop this whole process, this whole field of stem cell research or stem cell treatments. But as this is all developing, people go back to these stem cells in the bone marrow and ask the question, are they really limited? And as we start to study them, very quickly it becomes super obvious. No, this was just a belief. Like they can become everything in the body. And then we discovered that you release them every day. It's just part of your physiology. So as they're seen from the angle of stem cell sourcing and treatment as something exceptional, they're actually they're everywhere. I mean, you spit on the side road and on the sidewalk, and you just were spitting stem cells. You go to the bathroom and you pee stem cells. They're everywhere in your body, everywhere. So this thing that looks like super exceptional suddenly is becoming part of every aspect of your life. And then scientists knowing and discovering what stem cells from the bone marrow can do and that we're releasing them, then they start to test treatments to actually boost the release of your own stem cells. So the research that we're using has been done by many, many scientific teams using other compounds that trigger the release of stem cells from the bone marrow. So at the end of the day, the real comparison, if you want, is that when you inject stem cells, you increase the number of stem cells in circulation through an injection. And what we're doing is that we increase the number of stem cells in circulation by making you release more of your own stem cells, which is something that you naturally do.
What is so special about this algae compared to any other
There's
biomaterial?
nothing special about it in the well, again, when you look at it from the angle of of the first plant that we discovered had an effect on stem cells, it make it look like super special. But after we finalized all the science on this plant, then I was curious, like it cannot be that there's only one plant that stimulates stem cells. We evolved in symbiosis with the environment. It's a system of the body. Just like there are many plants stimulating the immune system, there has to be other plants. So I just started to look at plants that have been historically documented to bring a broad variety of health benefits, and I went and studied them with the same assay to test on their effect on stem cells, with the hypothesis that nobody has ever looked at it because it was not a thing before, but maybe they're working by triggering the release of stem cells from the bone marrow. If I ask you, the first one that will come to mind, medicinal mushrooms, adaptogens, goji berry, known for longevity. So I tested all these plants, and they all have an effect on stem cells. But the real hits is when I had a chance to travel to some remote areas of the world. Like you go to Madagascar, what is their go-to plant that they use for all kinds of problems? So through that work, we found that they use one species of aloe. Of 65 species, one of them is utilized to make a product called Vahona. So I went to Madagascar, we isolated that specific species of aloe and tested it, and it has a great effect on stem cells.
You tapped into ancient wisdom, you tapped into the testing over thousands of years of
Correct.
trials.
I looked back and I looked at plants that have been used for centuries for all kinds of benefits. And the literature is most of the time very scattered. And what I mean by this is like you don't have a place where it's all put into one article telling you everything that this plant is doing. No, it's scattered into all kinds of scientific journals. For example, sea buckthorn berry, used in Tibetan medicine, Mongolian medicine, Chinese medicine, described at times for its benefits on lung disease, lung cancer, heart disease, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, to speed up recovery from bone fracture, burn injuries. So you look at all this spread of benefits, the lung, the heart, the cardiovascular system, the pancreas. So I went on the Tibetan plateau. I met with a farm harvesting sea buckthorn berry. We developed an extract, which we tested, and it triggers the release of stem cells from the bone marrow. So I searched like this. I studied probably like 18 plants over the past 20 years. And of those, the top 5 plants, I brought them together and chose each plant according to their suspected or demonstrated mechanisms of action so that we have synergy between these plants. So the top 5 are now in this product called STEMREGEN Release. You take 2 capsules and you release conservatively, let's say 10 million additional stem cells in your blood circulation.
10 million compared to what would be the normal amount per day?
10 million will be because we studied, in our studies, we have people from 20 to 70 years old. So you have more stem cells when you're younger, fewer stem cells when you're older. So we normalize everything in terms of percentage increase above their baseline. Yeah. So we have roughly about like 100, like a doubling of the number of stem cells in circulation. You take an average 50-year-old, you will have about 10 to 12 million stem cells in circulation. So we double that. So I say we put 10 million stem cells in circulation. I'm saying this just because people are used to an injection which is tied to a number. So to be able to compare. But if you take 2 capsules of STEMREGEN as a 25-year-old, it's probably 20 to 30 million stem cells that you might release.
So Kim Kardashian recently had stem cells with Dr. Adil Khan, and we know Brian Johnson has had stem cells in Bahamas, and more celebrities are getting them, for better or for worse, I should say. And I don't endorse any stem cell companies or anything, or don't endorse the process right now. Is there a place for invasive stem cells?
Yes. Right now, we're doing a study with our product, STEMREGEN. And so we're doing a study on stable chronic congestive heart failure. So we're taking people that are at least 2 years stable with the disease that they have, the condition that they have. So they may have had the problem for, let's say, 15 years, but it's been evolving. And now for 2 years in a stable condition with whatever medicine can do, which has nothing to do with repairing your heart. it has to do with removing the pressure that you put on your heart. So it's beta blockers, hypotensive drugs, diuretics, that kind of stuff, just to remove the pressure on the heart. So what we say to these people is like, well, start releasing stem cells and see if your heart can repair. And so that study is ongoing. We just published the first 10 patients, and after 6 months, all 10 have normal heart function. So just releasing your stem cells can be powerful. But in that study, we also have another group, which is stem cell injection, and another group, which is a combination of both. Yeah. And we're doing this with there's two questions in that study. How does releasing your own stem cells compare with an injection? And what do we get? Do we get anything more by combining both? And it is clear that in the group where we do both, we get better results. Okay. So right now, the data that is coming out would be summarized by saying, if you can afford an injection, do it. But you'd be stupid to not do this with STEMREGEN. If you can't afford it, do STEMREGEN. It's going to really it's going to help you a lot. Yeah. But if you can do both, do both. So there's a place for stem cell injection. There are areas of the body with poor blood supply. So in these areas, an injection will give you a much greater chance of success. I'm talking about the eye. I'm talking about inner ear. I'm talking about joints. Stem cells in these locations are great. The problem right now is the source of these stem cells. And there's a big push right now for umbilical cord stem cells. I don't want to get into the whole, it will take another hour to go into the whole depth of it. It's not the long-term answer to the situation. I think with the science that we have today, I think the long-term answer, at least let's say in 5 years from now, is more what Adil Khan is doing. So it's tapping into this type of stem cells that everybody has in their body. They are multipotent, pluripotent. They are easy to activate. They are dormant in the body. And so you go anywhere, you're the source of your own stem cells. So there's no risk of contamination. All the other risks that you find with umbilical cord stem cells, which are very small. So I don't want to mislead anybody. Super small risk, smaller risk than just about any other drugs that you can have, from the pharmaceutical world. But there are risks nonetheless that you don't have when you start to use like your own stem cells, which are these Muse cells. So I think it will emerge into a place where whatever problem you have, then you could have access to your own stem cells through that process. And I would say, but you cannot have a stem cell injection when you go to the gym and you're like sore, when you hit your toe on the corner of the door, that your day-to-day life, and day-to-day maintenance of your tissues. You don't develop a disease overnight. You get your diagnosis, on this overnight, but you don't develop. These are like 30 years in development. To offset that development, release stem cells every day. That's where daily stem cell mobilization takes place. So there'll be like a nice marriage of both.
If someone didn't have access to these plants or the supplements, what 5 food items would you say they should pick up at the veg store tomorrow?
I am not aware of something that would be found in a health food store that would have an effect on stem cell release. Okay. Once they have been released, there are things that can stand in the way of stem cells being able to do their job. Because let me just, a small parenthesis here. When I give presentation, oftentimes I show this video. This is the group of Doris Taylor. They took the heart of a mouse, they circulated digestive enzymes on the cardiac muscle. So the entire muscle is fully digested, like it's gone. So after about 12 hours, the only thing that they're left with is the soft skeleton of the heart, the collagen of the heart. And on that collagen that still retains the trace that it was a heart, they took stem cells from the bone marrow of that animal and simply just laid them out, placed them on that connective tissue. And a week later, they have a beating heart in a test tube. This is amazing. This is telling you the stem cells sitting in your bone marrow right now can completely rebuild your heart. Talk about regenerative medicine. So the question is not, are stem cells working? The question is, what stands in the way of stem cells doing that? Why aren't they doing this when a 60-year-old has a condition and it's not repairing? Why are stem cells not doing their job? That's where diet, nutrition, lifestyle can play an immense role. So things that will stand in the way is microcirculation. Those stem cells can be up to 30 microns, your capillaries 12 microns. So for a stem cells to be able to circulate in the fine blood vessels of an area of your body needing repair, a lot of things need to work together. So nattokinase, so natto, is a good source of food to bring greater blood fluidity, to entrain more stem cells into microcirculation. Seaweed will bring you the kind of polysaccharides to rebuild the glycocalyx that is going to facilitate the circulation of cells. Collagen peptides will help rebuild the entire collagen structure around capillaries, which is basically the ability of capillaries to extend, to be flexible. Nitric oxide producers will help you have greater blood flow into your microcirculation. All of these things will help the delivery of stem cells.
Nitric oxide producers, by that you mean?
Beetroot, any nitrate, nitrate source, will to a large extent be a nitric oxide producer. So they're everywhere in your diet. Let me put it this way. Inflammation in the body, there's a lot of talks about inflammation. And the thing that is rarely talked about is that inflammation is not the problem. The problem is the injury that is not healing, that is releasing inflammation as a signal for repair, but because it's not repairing, that signaling continues and it becomes systemic. It's like you trying to find where's the small fire in your house. It's not growing. It's just staying there, but it's spewing smokes. And after a while, you talk about how the smoke is making your life miserable. Well, go find the fire and extinguish the fire. The problem will be gone. That's inflammation in your body. So if you have inflammation, and an injury that is not repairing, it becomes systemic, and it's creating noise for your stem cells. They cannot find where the problem is. So you want to suppress that systemic inflammation so stem cells can really find their area, where they need to go and repair. So curcumin, I tell people that add colors in your food. Anything that is colorful will bring polyphenols that all have some form of anti-inflammatory properties. So you go to your health food store, these are the things to look for.
Brilliant. You talk a lot about fasting also being part of that.
Yeah, fasting is, you cannot find fasting at your health food store, but if you don't go to your health food store, you can start fasting. Yeah, fasting will do two things that are very important. One, will put more stem cells in circulation, but probably more interesting, and not enough research has been done in this area, but if you look at stem cell activity, which is migration, ability to proliferate, ability to differentiate, like doing their job in a tissue, before and after a 3-day fast, stem cells behave like younger stem cells. So we know that stem cell age, just like anything in the body, so fasting seems to rejuvenate stem cells. So, and it's probably actually at the end of the day, probably the main reason why fasting is so it's been associated with rejuvenation in so many, not only studies, but so many different historical applications. I mean, so many things have been documented over centuries about the benefit of fasting. So it rejuvenates stem cells.
I've recently had a doctor that is pro-carnivore. He's a carnivore.
Okay.
He's carnivore diet, and spoke very passionately about how vegetables are not needed in the human diet. I want you to dispel his claim one way or another from what you've seen with all your research.
I will just say, go ask the cow what they ate to provide the meat that he's eating, to make that cow healthy. It was all vegetables. It was all vegetable base.
Yeah.
I mean, there's tons of studies. Everything that you need in your body to support various aspects of your physiology, polyphenols. I mean, so many aspects of what you need in your life comes from the plant world, and it's not all going to come from meat.
He said the issue with studies, and again, I want to disprove what he said a lot, because I don't feel great when I eat meat, actually. But he said it's the cause and effect. A lot of these studies have there's never been like a longitudinal study that has been done without other factors playing in. Because I asked him, and then I pushed him on olive oil, and that we know is rich in polyphenols, and his pushback was, well, everyone who eats the Mediterranean diet and has olive oil has sunlight and X, Y, and Z, and these are the actual factors.
Well, what you're saying is interesting because that argument comes from a place of adopting a conclusion, and now I'm fighting from that point of view, and I create doubts on everything else that basically attacks my conclusion. It's not coming from a place of saying, let's follow the data and see where the data goes. Because those kinds of rebuttal, you can have those for just about anything, So I mean, I didn't come prepared to dive deep into this, but I've been a vegetarian for decades.
So you're a vegetarian?
For decades. And I'm doing pretty good, I think it's nonsense. I think it's absolute nonsense. If we start to debate into the detail, I would have to probably come a little bit more prepared. But there's no doubt in my mind that actually so many. It's an interesting cycle for me to see to observe all this renaissance, of all this carnivorous approach at a time that when I was a teen and when I was a young adult, everything was about how so many diseases are actually coming from eating too much meat, which is what pushed me to become a vegetarian. Now you come back and it's almost like all of this has been forgotten, and now there's a newer generation that is bringing back all this, this meat-eating philosophy, and it's going against so much of the science that I'm acquainted with. And to come and say now that all that science was biased because of, in fact, they also had sunlight and all that kind of stuff is nonsense. It's nonsense. All that science was not biased.
N of 1. When it comes to stem cells, are you seeing differences? Because I know and again, we're not here to...
What do you mean by N of 1?
What I mean by it is with your product that you have in market, I'm assuming it's a one size fits all. Do people react differently to different products, or are you finding from the data that actually this is beneficial for all?
It's your repair system. So it suddenly makes you approach health and disease formation from a completely different angle than, I will not say like alternative medicine people are used to say. I would say mainstream medicine. The way that we have been raised, even if we think differently, it's been ingrained, it's been imprinted in our subconscious. We look at the world of disease through the diagnostic. You got a heart disease, you got liver disease, you got pancreas, you got diabetes, you got heart disease. And behind that, what we're discovering is that you have a repair system, and the stem cell can become cells of your heart, of your liver, of your lung. It can become everything. So we're looking at this whole field of stem cells from the physiological standpoint of saying it's your repair system. So just release stem cells, just put more stem cells in circulation. In everybody, they do the same thing. You're alive today because you release stem cells. You have a new liver every 2-3 years. So if you're still alive with a good liver, it's because your stem cells are working and you're releasing them. So we just need to really let that sink in. They are a vital process in your life. You cannot live more than, 10 minutes without oxygen, probably not more than 10 days without water, probably not more, and I'm going to the extreme here, probably not more than 2 months without food, You probably cannot live more than 3 to 6 months without stem cells. They are vital to your survival. So they're playing that role in everybody. So the moment that you release them, it's not different for each individual. You don't have to go to the person's history to see how you need to adapt the approach of stem cells. Just put them in the system. And in everybody, they will do what stem cells do. They'll find the place that is needing repair, and they will repair.
Give me the perfect week. I want to activate as many stem cells in my body. Christian, draw it out for me. I want the perfect week, Monday to Friday. What do I need to do? Apart from the diet and the nutrients and the supplements that you've already mentioned.
I mean, right now, truly, if you want to release stem cells, and that's why the work that I've done, I think is interesting and important. This is the blend of plants to put more stem cells in circulation. There's not a whole lot of other things that we can do aside from hyperbaric chamber. And another thing that is important, it's not published, but it's the work of Dr. Doris Taylor. She never published it, but she's a great scientist, so I don't doubt it. Meditation puts more stem cells in circulation. So the ideal week, if we think it in terms of health process, pick a day or two in the week where you're fasting. That will be great. Make sure that you do at least 30 minutes of meditation every day. And by meditation, what I'm referring here is not guided meditation. It's not visualization meditation. It's really you stop. You just stop, and then you let the thought process, you observe everything that is happening in your mind and in your body, and you see that as being something external to the eye, which is separate from the body and from everything else. So you observe everything. That state triggers the release of stem cells from the bone marrow and puts more stem cells in circulation. In the rest of the day, make sure that you do at least 3 times a week, do some physical activity, something that will bring up your heartbeat and make you break a sweat. Doesn't matter what it is. Like if you dive deeper in physical activity, you will have like a smorgasbord of different things that you can do. I'm going to summarize it just in saying, increase your heartbeat, break a sweat. And then include fruits and vegetables, but colored fruits and vegetables, more vegetables than fruit. Sugar, as I dive more and more into it. I was asked to give a lecture on sugar about 2 years ago, and for the first time, I really dove in that literature, and I mean, it's really had an immense impact on how I'm looking at diet right now. The literature is fairly clear. Anytime you have elevated blood glucose in your bloodstream, you create space for the formation for glycation, and glycation is going to develop into problems down the road as you age. So you can probably, if we could measure it, probably the best indicator of how your health is going to be in, let's say, 20, 30 years from now, 10 years from now, is to look back and see how much time you spent in hyperglycemia. And it's probably going to be the best determinant of your health down the road. It's not, you cannot do it. It's not a measurement that you can effectively do in people. But having reached this understanding, I would say, try to keep your glycemia as low as possible. Okay. And if you eat if you have carbs in your diet, have them at one time. Okay. You have one excursion. So try to add that into from a dietary standpoint.
Fruits, you say are fine, or?
No, because you got too much sugar in it. You know, you go into, for example, you go into the islands in the Caribbean, and they have like a lot of fruits. So they drink a lot of fruit juice, they eat a lot of fruit. And it is believed in the islands to be the cause of this epidemics of diabetes. Wow. So for that reason, I would say fruit juices, just bring a little bit too much carbs.
What is happening with the meditation? I'm super intrigued by that. How is meditation activating stem cells?
I have no clue.
What would you infer, from that? If we're basically surrendering to our body and to our mind and allowing things to flow.
I mean, I could hypothesize that when you go into, and again, this was done with expert meditators. So we're not talking about a guided meditation, a relaxation. We're talking about you sit down, and when you stop the mind, you basically separate yourself from the body. You're in a different place. So when you do this, the body is now no longer leading, because if you think about it, think about what we talked about earlier. Everything that is happening in your mind is a repercussion of what your body as an antenna is vibrating with. And that leads your life. The moment you separate yourself from that, you become much more in the real I, which is peace, serenity. It's a place of peaceful certainty. You're just sitting there. That presence echoes back on the body. I think that the moment that you bring that state in the body, this body kicks back into a process of healing. And your healing response is your healing system, it's your repair system, it's your stem cells. And all of this is neurological, like it goes through your brain. We know that stem cell release from the bone marrow is brain driven. If you inject blockers of norepinephrine in an animal and then trigger the release of stem cells are not released. It's ruled by the nervous system. We know that stem cells have receptors for neurotransmitters. We know that every single capillary has nerve terminals that the brain can send signals to, that can guide stem cells to migrate in a specific area. So the healing response is entirely under the control of your nervous system if needed.
So mindset, optimism, purpose,
totally.
gratitude, all these things.
Totally. So no doubt in my mind that all of this boost, and it's probably the mechanism of action why gratitude and all this meditation, everything that people do when they're facing a disease or something, like there's a big diagnosis and it changed their life and they develop more serenity and gratitude around their life and suddenly their health goes better. I think that is the mechanism of action. They basically allow their healing system to kind of kick into another gear.
Something so beautiful about that. Being grateful for the world and you heal yourself.
There you go.
You literally repair yourself and you activate stem cells.
There you go.
It's the beautiful marriage of science and spirituality. I think this is something that I don't know if you know Bruce Lipton and his work on honeymoon effect and all that. It's like this marriage that we're kind of seeing, and obviously Einstein and everyone talked about it. So
of course. I mean, everything. To me, oftentimes I refer to near-death experience as the thing that creates the breach in the mind. What I mean by this is that think of near-death experience. Your body is dead, your brain is flatline, you have no mind, there's no more mind. And yet, people come back with a greater understanding of their identity. And identity, well, now they understand their life completely differently. They know all the things that they were attached to that were making their life miserable. They come back transformed. That identity is not born at death. It's there before. But we mask it with another identity, which is our stories, our opinions, our worries, our fears, like all the stuff that makes up all of our day-to-day life. It masks this other presence. But the moment that we reconnect with this other presence, it's like what people experience after a near-death experience. You can experience it without having a near-death experience. It's connecting back with this identity, and it then echoes back into your body. And I think that it puts you in that state of greater healing. I think that there is a neurological, immunological repair impact of spending time in that state.
Christian, for our listeners that don't know, you spent time in a monastery.
Yeah.
For how long?
I was not there very long. I was there for 6 months.
Okay, so were you going to say a few weeks? But...
No, I was there for 6 months, but it didn't stop. Of course, after that event. So I was told my role was in the world. Not long after leaving, the master at that monastery just said, "Okay, so you will go to America, and then you will do great things, but we cannot say more about this for now." And that's it. And this journey started in America with stem cell work and all of that. But putting that aside, that work has simply continued over the years. And it's probably, honestly, everything that I'm doing with stem cells was put in front of me. I saw that they were the repair system. I had this concept that by putting more stem cells in circulation, it could have a huge impact on people's health. And as I was talking about this to colleagues, to peers, to anybody, I was facing a wall. Like nobody believed it. It was no, stem cells cannot become this. Putting stem cells in your blood means nothing. Maybe it's bad for you.
But you knew you were called to.
I knew it without a shadow of a doubt. I knew that this was real. But because I was the only one, I had no ambition with it. Like, had I met somebody who would have taken it and developed it, I would have given it away and I would have supported that person. I did not have that ambition. But having nobody else doing it, and yet being so convinced that it was a reality, it just sucked me in. Like I just developed it over the years. But my first passion is everything else that we've talked about. To me, we won't save the world by putting more stem cells in circulation. I think I think we'll save health and wellness and longevity and all of that. But we'll save the world by helping people spending more time with their true self, because then their action is going to be completely different in the world, and will change the world by making more people being more in this place of truth.
So, and the reason why I asked the question and wanted the listeners to know is, I know most people don't have a monastery nearby, or they don't have 6 months to go on this process. But I think this clarity you mentioned is super important, and it's something higher than self. Because I have the exact same feeling that you're talking about. I don't know what it is, but I know exactly what I need to do, and no one's going to convince me otherwise. How does our listener get to that place? What can you recommend for them?
Oh man, Peter Crone is someone good to listen to. Go and follow. He's everywhere on YouTube. You can find a lot of his thoughts. Alan Watts wrote and has a lot of lectures that he gave that gives a lot of that understanding. But at the end of the day, that understanding and all that language, its only aim is to bring you to the place where you have enough motivation to do it, because no knowledge will replace doing it. At the end, it's all an experience. It's not knowledge. It's an experience. Spend time with yourself. That's it. Spend time where you stop, you don't do anything. Meditation is not, you don't do meditation. It's doing nothing. You stop and you spend time in that presence that is the real you.
This is really interesting, because we're talking about, you talked just now about a renaissance of the carnivorous diet, but there's a renaissance or a need to heal. And when you talk about things in a past life and we move on to another life, it's why is there such a need right now to look at our stem cells, to look at our bodies and to heal?
I mean, the call for healing has always been there, in the sense that people have had problems forever and they want to get rid of them. For me, what I see as something that is growing is that there is we've had ideas about life forever. Like you go back in history, I mean, like Newton. And I mean, there's a whole series of, the Renaissance has this huge philosophical development. And I think if we just stop right now and we look at the world where it is right now, and we're fighting for ideas. Like it has not brought peace. It has not brought like serenity. So I think the world is kind of reaching that place where you realize there's another mind. And now we reconnect with, Aurobindo was talking about this, Ramakrishna was, I mean, so many of these spiritual giants talked about it. The moment you piece down and you stop the mind, you discover an identity that is so much deeper. Aurobindo was calling the supramental, like it's the mind where that gives you like instant knowledge of anything that you need to know. Instant understanding of anything that you need to understand. Not an encyclopedia that makes you own all the knowledge in the world. No, what you need to know today. And it's a place where you're facing a problem and you look at it without opinions, without prejudgment, without anything that comes from the mind, and you know what's the path to move on and take on. To me, it's the quest of that mind. So now this is starting. It's reaching the place where we realize the mind is limited. The mind is just it's the sum of everything. When you have an idea or an opinion and you think it's the truth, what it means, and we don't think of it this way, but what it means is that I have the certainty that everything that I know about a topic is everything that there is to know about that topic. How stupid is that? You don't know everything that there is to know about a topic, but the opinion that you have is only the sum of the things that you know about it. So to think that this is the truth is ridiculous. So we have to reach this place where we reach the conclusion the mind is limited by nature. It's a computer. It's an algorithm. It's all it is. Truth, from a consciousness standpoint, you discover it when you drop the mind as your tool to assess reality. That's what deep meditation comes. To me, I see that the world is reaching this place where a growing number of people realize the mind is just not it. You've got to go beyond it. And the body should not be an obstacle, but it, for a lot of people, becomes an obstacle in the sense that if I reach that wisdom in my 50s, and oftentimes that's when it happens, 40, 50s, 60s, you start to realize, I've changed opinions about things like 10 times in my life, and every time I was ready to debate this with my life. Then what is the value of all these opinions? So if you search happiness through a marriage, through a car, through a vacation, and there's a point you just realize happiness comes from within. Like it's not just like nice words, it's not like fluffy statements. Happiness only comes from within. We project it in a project that is outside of us. When we realize that project, this wedding, whatever it is, when we realize it, we enjoy the self-generated joy that we projected in that event. And when that event is past, that joy goes. And now we go into the next one. When we start to really realize it comes from within, then you start to dive within. So I'm thinking, but this only comes with wisdom, the time that you spend on earth, the number of failures you've had, and you wisen up. So when that happens, this is also the time in your life when something starts to fail in your body. And now you develop type 2 diabetes, arthritis, whatever. Something develops, and now it starts to consume your life. Now you start to do everything you can to resolve that issue, and it stops you in that wisening process. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. So for me, the mission or the passion and all that work that I'm doing with stem cells, it's not because I'm passionate with stem cells. It's just because if we can give an additional, let's say, 20, 30 decades of healthy life to a 50-year-old that are starting this process of like wisening and going within. Give them a little bit, like another few decades of health. I think we'll change the face of the earth. We'll change everything. Everything, all the reasons we're fighting for, they're all ideological and they're all wrong in terms of like they don't matter.
You make a really great point, and I completely agree with you. Fear is the mind killer, and the world, I think the vast majority of people are stuck in their minds. And I think it's part because we are so disconnected from our bodies and from our hearts. You said earlier that when we move from our minds into our bodies, into our hearts, that we know what we need to we know what we need to know on a day-to-day basis.
Yes, but I would express it differently. I would say is not to sink into your body. I think that there's a misleading message that is part of the common day, if you want, spirituality, which is to get down in your body. And we have to understand this body, this meat, is an animal. You're not what if I come behind you and I surprise you, you'll jerk. You'll be scared. Your first reaction will be scared, because when something surprises you in nature, it's because it's going to kill you. As an animal, that's what it is. Why is the reaction not like, oh, love is going to envelope me right by something unexpected? It's because we're an animal. This body is trained, like you have in your skin heat receptors, pain receptors. You don't have love receptors. The body is made as an antenna for fear and to detect anything that can disturb you from the environment. It's not an instrument to capture truth. So meditation process is a process to separate you from that antenna, to be independent from it. And then you come back in it. And then the body becomes that purified antenna, if you want. But without this process of purification, the body will never tell you the truth. You need to separate from it and get into this place, which I call the supramental. And the moment that you've touched that place and you have the experience of what it is, you understand what I'm talking about. I've had a chance to be in that place where you know nothing. It's peace. Like you're in a place where your mind is flatline. Like there's no mental activity. And as you walk around, if a question comes in your mind, the answer comes with it. There's not even a time in between. It's a constant flow of the things that you look, and you're in awe of seeing somebody pass beside you, and you know what this person is thinking now in their mind. Not by curiosity, But because at that moment you can send a blessing to help that person. It's a choreography of consciousness, if you want. What if we all go there? But to go there, you've got to detach from the body, because the body will keep you into, body and mind are the same. You cannot, why in meditation do they say you have to be completely still? Because the moment you move your body, your mind starts moving. They're connected together. You have to develop a separation from the body, not a denial, not a rejection, not a degradation. It's not less. It's just understanding its proper place. It's a vehicle. And the moment that we allow to detach from it and have an existence that is separated from it, that existence can then sink back in it, and you're a different presence. To me, that's the process.
I look at the biohacking space, and I know you can't say too much because you sponsor a lot of events, but I see a lot of ego. I see a lot of people in their heads, pushing and shilling their products. There is a heart-led movement. There is people trying to, again, the mind-body connection. It's interesting you say that, because the body is different, but I look at it from the heart, right?
Yeah,
the soul.
Yeah. Totally.
How do we get there? Because I feel that the only way we can unlock true human flourishing and the true healing process in the world is to get there.
I mean, there's a nice inclusion more and more of what I'm talking about right now in biohacking. For example, we had the Health Optimization Summit, and Peter Crone, is speaking. He was at the Biohacking conference in America as well. Peter Crone? Yeah. So that's what I'm talking about. Here's the same kind of thing that Peter Crone is talking about. So there is a more and more of that. Actually, there's a very nice, what you're talking about here, the people who really come from an ego-centered space or place, they are in that space. But the people who are in a true quest for something bigger are also in that space. So you see more, the egos are more visible, but there's a nice blend. And I think it's the more you spend time with the people who are more heart-centered, I think it transforms you. And somewhere, that transformation is going to take place. Let me summarize a lot of the things that we've said here along this question of ego. A lot of people, intuitively or by experience, but oftentimes intuitively, will agree that there is such a thing as oneness. There's a oneness, like we're all one. Like a lot of people will subscribe to this idea. There's a lot of consequence when we subscribe to this idea. Oneness means it's one. If there's me separate from you, then it's two-ness. It's no longer oneness. So let's sink deeply into the deep belief that there is such a thing as oneness. Then that means my body separated from your body is not oneness. I'm not saying it's not a reality, but to dive in the deep truth, then I need to separate myself from what makes me two. There's a place where we are one. Let's go to that place. And there's more and more of that kind of language in the biohacking space. And anytime somebody is really celebrating their ego-ness, then it's people that are not really working toward this oneness. It's there. It is there. And when you cross people who do that work, you feel them. I've met a lot today and yesterday at the Biohacking, at the Health Optimization Summit here.
And that paradigm shift has to happen, because when you talk about this oneness, when you talk about the general exposome, the fact that the events or the actions of someone in India polluting is actually affecting someone elsewhere, and I shouldn't say in India, I should say everywhere in the world, it's that this oneness we have to fast track this oneness, although it's a paradigm shift. A lot of people are like, well, that's a bit woo-woo, but otherwise, we're not going to heal as individuals and as a collective. I think the reason why I mentioned it is biohacking, the pursuit of biohacking is usually seen as being an individual pursuit. But we're breathing in microplastics as we speak. We are being impacted by the lack of this collective, the lack of this cohesion.
I'll take that one step further. The earth is spinning. So the air that you breathe today was in a place of war just yesterday. The thoughts are circulating everywhere. Like if you sit down in deep meditation and you observe every single thought, and then you stop and you can grab one and just stay with it. You don't do anything with it. You don't dance with it. You don't react to it. You don't say it's a bad thought. You don't say how why do I have that thought? Do nothing with it. Just observe it, and then you will find its source. And they all come from fear. Every single thought is coming from fear. And if you hold it well, you will see it's not coming from you. You're not the source of that thought. You latch on to it. The mind latches on all kinds of things, on a thought that resonates from some sort of emotional state that your body as an antenna vibrates with, will capture that thought, your mind will take it and will make a story with it. And then you walk around and you've got all these stories constantly in your mind, and they're not your thought and they're fear-based. It's the basics of our day-to-day life. So the moment we discover that your thoughts are not used, and where are they coming from? They're coming from all the thoughts that are emitted by everybody else. So that kind of oneness starts by the personal hygiene of being careful of what we put out for others as well, because we paid a price for it as well. So it going even beyond the pollution in India. It's the thought pollution, and it's not there yet into the language, if you want, of biohacking or spiritual, however you want to call it. But to me, it's like it's a super important aspect.
The human experience, the human story, the human journey. I always ask this question to my guests. By 2030, I want to go into your crystal ball. By 2030, what's the world look like to you? What does the human experience look like?
If everything that I'm talking about right now starts to be shared by more and more people, and by shared, I don't mean more egos develop with their message in their schools. What I mean is individually, more and more people dive within and do that kind of work, discover this other identity, discover that depth, let that sink in. It changes you. You change not because you decide that you change because you spend more time with the real you. That is where the real change is coming from. As more and more people do that, then we will slowly transform this world into a world of greater unity, and everything will change for the better. If not enough people do that, I think we're on a terrible path.
AI is mentioned a lot, and I feel it will be the great connector or divider, because as people have more time, and as people, I'm not going to say lose their jobs, but transition out of their jobs, it gives an opportunity for space, for an opportunity to be creative. But the flip side of that, it's an opportunity of more fear to come in, of lack of purpose, lack of something to do, and so it's going to be a very interesting transition. And I think this is a call to action. I think right now, I come back to the mission of this podcast, is it's human flourishing for all by 2030. I think this huge call to action that I shout out to anyone listening right now to really think about how we can connect people and make people feel a sense of, motivate people to find a sense of purpose in this changing world.
Yeah, AI will. I mean, again, I'm coming back to the same thing. The moment you spend time with your true self, your life takes a whole different purpose. And it's no longer a material purpose of achieving different things. Yes, you achieve different things, but it's the purpose of deepening that relationship, because it brings you everything you've been seeking in life since the day you're born. You find it in yourself. You find it there. Actually, I will go as far as to say that's what you're looking for as you pursue all these other things. That's really what you're looking for. And that's why there's no ultimate satisfaction in anything that is pursued, because you never find it. It's in you. But coming back to AI, I think that for people who believe the world, whatever, as a general statement, if we believe that we are a biological computer, essentially I as a consciousness is the result of my brain, AI is going to be 1,000 times bigger than your brain, and it's going to destroy you. will be crushed by AI. But if we shift and we realize, no, it is just a mere biological computer. Behind this, there's a consciousness then it frees you, because now your body is is served by AI, and you as a consciousness, you can start to live in that space more and more. I think it's going to free and really help this world if it's lived properly. And it goes back, I think, to what I was saying before. More people diving into that inner quest, and it's a numbers game. There's a point where it's going to shift. There will be a critical mass, and it's going to shift everything in another direction. I think it's the only way that it's going to change.
Christian, there's a lot of snake oil in the space. I say a lot. There's
a lot.
A lot. And my job is really trying to give our listeners only the stuff that works. When you look at STEMREGEN, what is your biggest fear as more products come to market and realize the opportunity in this space?
I mean, it has happened. So there's a lot of companies that have come and gone over the years, copying what I have done, taking the information that I put out, taking that information, putting it on their product. It is profoundly annoying. But I must say that I have come to realize that somewhere it helps, in the sense that I don't know how many times people have come and discovered this whole concept of stem cells through one of these products. It did not work for them. And in this dissatisfaction, kept looking for it, and finally found that I was the one that developed all that field. So now they come to our product, which is more expensive, but it's real. So, and then they see the results that they have. So I've seen that somewhere it has served the purpose. But I've told my colleague many times, oftentimes this idea of having competitors, you would like to be the only one in your space. And quite frankly, I've told to my partners, and they agree with it. For many years, I said, I would like to change the narrative from, is this product real or not, to which product is best? Because now that means you've accepted that it's real, and now you're trying to see which one is better. The market is big enough for a lot of these products. So I'm not really concerned about competitors. I've even helped competitors to launch real product, because the market is big enough. And I think that as the message is carried and brought to the marketplace by more than one company, more than one brand, then it will make it more credible. People will be able to accept it more easily. Because still today, with all the science that there is behind the concept that I'm talking about, which is releasing your own stem cells, I mean, there is so much science, but it is new. The main question that comes in people's mind, and I understand it, is like, well, if that is true, why is it not taught in med school? And there's a reason for all of this, okay? But I understand it. But there's tons of science, and if more and more brands and people talk about it, it will penetrate, it will sink in, and it will become part of the curriculum, in med school. It will come, there's no doubt. It will have to.
Christian, thank you so much for your time. Hey.
If you want to know what tomorrow has in store like I do, you definitely want to listen to our recent episode where I talked to Peter Diamandis about a future where we could live forever. Thank you so much.